Hi, welcome to the 6th edition of Blue Soccer. I'm John Dave, myself. We're going to look back over Leinster's historic semi-final victory against Toulouse. Munster's defeat to Sarries, and of course look forward to all the Pro 14 action next weekend. So lads, in our fifth final, who would have thunk it 10 years ago?
Yeah, as I was just saying to you a minute ago, and Stuart Lancaster was unveiling, I think it was about a year and a half ago, when he said he only had 3 trophies then, and he had challenged the team to get 5. And I was thinking, geez, come on, let's get 4 first before we worry about 5. And here we are, 80 minutes away from a 5th title. And Sarries have lost a Heineken Cup final. Leinster haven't. So we'll see how that goes.
Their 4th
final. Doesn't mean a damn thing, but yes, they've got 2 wins out of 3. So they are. So I looked it up earlier today, or I got somebody else to look it up because I don't understand betting.
Your research assistant.
But apparently they are very marginal favourites. They're 1-point favourites, or we're evens and they're 4 to 5 on, or whatever way it all works out. So. Yeah, slight favourites, but the game itself was a belter. The semi against Toulouse was an absolute belter, wasn't it? We really
performance was just extraordinarily good.
We pulled it all out.
Every player played really, really well. We out-thought them, we out-fought them, we out-physicaled them.
Yeah.
We played better rugby. Our hands were better, and our brains were better, and we held them tryless. And it could have been more. I mean, we left some tries out there.
In fairness, though, as soon as I saw the team, which we hadn't seen last week when we did the show, as soon as I saw the team, I thought, my God, they're really bringing a knife to a gunfight here. They've 2 scrum halves, and their back row are all like 12 foot tall. Like who's going to do the Jacqueline there? Who's Jacqueline for this game?
But you wonder, wouldn't you, though, like what their tactics were? I mean, they interviewed their coach on the pitch before the game. And he was kind of very typically French. We'll give it a go. But they didn't pick Ntamack, who's probably one of the form players in Europe this year. Like his form for France was brilliant. He was great for Toulouse this season. He's kind of revolutionised them in the, to be contenders again. And then they didn't bring him on for 60 minutes.
Yeah, they played. Those halfbacks played against Clermont the week before and went quite well. In as much as that happened, so that's obviously what fed into them. And their pack was picked to play us the way we played in January. Problem is, we didn't play the way we played in January.
Well, it didn't work out so well in January for them either.
I mean, I was looking at it again, and we played almost not none, but very little one-out rugby. We went wider. We still hit the ball up, but we went wider doing it and moved their pack around, and they weren't able to. I mean, we all saw after 50 minutes their pack was
gone.
Yeah, they had all their players and all their subs on by 60 minutes.
Yeah, we moved them around. I think they thought that we would play the way we played in January, which was we just ground them down, and that's not how we went about it. I mean, obviously James Lowe's try is a perfect example of. Just moving, all the moving parts, all moving at once. They didn't have a clue what was going on.
Well, also, when you consider, our tight 5 are basically the Irish tight 5. Our 10, 11, 12 are the Irish 10, 11, 12. Sorry, 10, 12, 13, I meant. We've supplemented that with, World Cup finalist Scott Fardy. Sean O'Brien, who hasn't been in great form but came back in a great way, and I have to say, Jack Conan is playing amazing. He's got Gordon Darcy-esque, footwork in contact.
If you were picking the Irish team now,
you'd put him ahead of Sander, wouldn't you?
He's better. He's ahead of Sander. Form-wise, yeah.
Yeah, well, I've said it before. If I was picking the Irish team now, I'd have both of them in the team.
Yeah, but then you'd lose.
Oh no! Who's going to make angry faces at the opposition?
Defensive line-out expert Peter O'Mahony
that we don't use.
Well, anyway, I know you don't like him, but
sometimes I don't like him. I'm sure he's a lovely bloke. I just think he's shit at rugby. No, I don't think he's shit at rugby. I think that in the Irish team, I think we're carrying him for what he. I mean, he does things, but I think we're carrying him for those. But I think a much better balanced back row would be a proper open side, Josh or Dan, Jack Conan and CJ Stander, who I think is an absolute top class number 6.
Well, we shall see what
shall
happens
see,
there, but I can't see Joe being for turning this side of the World Cup.
No.
But
I mean, in fairness, it's worked out for him.
all I'm saying is, form-wise, CJ Sanders gone a little bit quiet. Great and all as he is, and Jack Conan has really, like what they used to say about Jack Conan a season or two ago was he was great, but he'd lose concentration in games. He doesn't lose concentration in games anymore at all. They all were focused, seriously focused on their job, getting up off the ground, like just very committed performance from 1 to 23. Even Michael Bent came on.
But like,
I thought
was
Bent's
absolutely hurling
Bent's
himself
been really
at people.
good this
He
year,
has
actually.
been,
He really has, and he showed it again. And his carrying was superb.
was great, and I believe Porter had a bit of a niggle. But like we
pectoral
didn't.
muscle injury apparently.
Was it? Well, we didn't lose a huge amount. Well, obviously, anybody who doesn't have the power and the turnover capacity of Andrew Porter off the bench is losing something. But
I thought our scrums were actually one of our weakest points. If you looked at 2 of the scrums, we were penalised. I think we won one penalty, which I couldn't understand. We were being driven backwards, and we lost another one as well to a penalty.
I don't think Leinster ever scrummage well against a French team when refereed by Wayne Barnes. Just the way he referees the scrum, it just doesn't suit the way we scrummage, and it does suit the way French teams scrummage. If you remember Clermont in the Aviva 4 years ago, they absolutely screwed us at the scrum, and Barnes was the referee there, and it's just his referee. He's not been like biased or anything. It's just the way he likes a scrum to be set up. Doesn't suit us, and it does suit French teams.
I thought he let us off with one. Like we were going back at I wouldn't say a rate of knots now, but we were certainly been shunted back, and he managed to penalise them for some reason.
well, one of the upsides of having a back row that's all 6'20" and 30 stone each is that you've got serious power in the scrum. You know, you may not have a jackal, and you may have guys who are going to run out of puff, but as regards scrummaging, you've got serious power going through, and the two. Okay, they're not hugely powerful athletes in the second row, but they're both 6'10" or something, and well able. So guys like that leaning against the scrum alone are going to put a fair bit of pressure on it. So yeah, that was their upside. However, as I said, it was a bit of a knife to a gunfight. I don't think they were ever going to win with either the tactics or the team that they picked.
Well, it was interesting, like when we did see our team, that we were all kind of speculating what was going to happen with the 3 into 2
Meatloaf conundrum.
the Meatloaf conundrum, and they didn't have to make that decision, as it turned out, with Gibson Park.
No, they didn't have to do that.
Hmm?
They didn't have to do that.
Yeah.
Yay! So anyway, they didn't. So it meant that Lowe got to start, and we kind of touched on it, like his try, the offload from Keane Healy, the pass
That was amazing
from
too.
O'Brien,
Yeah.
Lowe's involvement, and you mentioned he was involved a couple of times in that.
Score a try over your head.
Then he had one disallowed for the accidental interference. I think it was Conan.
Yeah.
It was going,
And then-
yeah.
And it was a superb finish, though, it has to be said. Yeah.
Fantastic. And then he had another one that as he was trying to
He just
scramble to
dropped
reach
it,
over, it got knocked out of his hands or whatever. But like potential hat trick.
Yeah,
You know,
he was a net's
he's such
measure
a
away from it.
dangerous
and
player.
He was roaming around the pitch. There was one point, I think it's on about 50 minutes, when he took the ball just outside our 22 and he was tackled. He didn't stop. He made another 15 or 20 metres in contact with guys hanging off him. He just kept going and going and going.
We spoke before about having something different about him and being unpredictable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They took a kick off. They kicked it dead. I think it was Larmer
That's
chased
right,
it
yeah.
back, ran, and kind of obviously Lowe was calling for it. But 9 times out of 10, or probably 99 times out of 100, you see it been given to the out half, and the out half taking his time, get all the forwards behind the kick, and very rudimentary drop
Yeah.
out. Low calling for
took it
it
over
on
the
the
line,
sideline,
yeah.
Yeah.
little dink 1 yard over the line, pick it up, set up the ruck, and we get the momentum then going forward.
And of course, that had the advantage of not allowing their forwards rest, so it was keeping them moving all the time.
Also,
Big time,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
but just so exciting even to get the crowd involved in it.
Oh yeah.
Well,
You
well, I mentioned earlier about the Irish tight five and all international back row. You've also and the 10, 12, 13. In among that, like you've also got the Irish 15. You've got I don't know what you call Jordan Larmour, the Irish number 23 at 14.
Quarter.
And then who have you got in there? James Lowe. Like that's serious class in the back line. Really is. Like Larmour can make a try from nothing as well. So yeah, I'm the only thing you don't have, I suppose, is James Lowe is probably 6'2" or so, but you don't have a huge 6'4", 6'5" winger that you can hit with cross kicks.
Yeah.
But apart from that, you've got all the tools in the box for that, and the midfield. Henshaw and Ringrose are just two amazing athletes. Ringrose, I know he got man of the match, but Jesus, he was everywhere. Like I was wondering, is that Luke McGrath? No, that's Gary Ringrose as well. Is that who the hell is that? That's Gary Ringrose.
I think a lot of those lads had points to prove.
Possibly.
After the, let's say, less than stellar performance during the Six Nations for a lot of the players.
Yeah, there was. I think there was an element of that too. That a lot of guys had kind of, progressed along a bit from where we were in the Six Nations in terms of they were feeling better, they were feeling fresher, feeling fitter, and were able to express themselves better. It's not so much a problem with the Six Nations; it's just a matter of where we were at that point in the season.
Yeah.
And Sexton wasn't right.
Sexton wasn't right, and he looked right. I mean, he was superb on Sunday. He really, really was.
I think he said himself he's back to full fitness now. He's happy with.
I mean, there was times like we'll see Lowe's trying in a minute, like in terms of all the moving parts. But there was one where we were attacking down the Havelock Square end, and there was lots of stuff going on, and he just puts a lovely dink in, and we're right into their 5 meter. In the red zone, and it's just all he just kept things ticking over nicely,
And just the way that kick, it just weighted so perfectly that it bounces up just in front of the line, so that their winger had to carry it.
Yeah, Colby had to take it in. Yeah.
One like we mentioned, Drew. You mentioned loads of players there, and they all had great games. I thought there could have been a potential for disaster when Henshaw. Not sure needlessly. The more I was kind of thinking of it at the time, I was thinking, what are you doing? But, we conceded 6 points while he was off the pitch. But I just even think a momentum changer. Again, if he hadn't have done that, the ball would have gone wide, they'd have scored, they might have got the conversion, it would have been 7. Do you know what I mean? Just the momentum would have just, like, if you're taking, just give them 3 points. Give them another 3 points. It's not too bad. But
there was talk it could have been a penalty try.
But that's the thing I wanted to ask you. Did you think it was worth a penalty try?
No, because he could have made the tackle.
That's true.
There is that, and secondly, I'm sure Johnny Sexton would have been if he'd seen it on the screen, would have been arguing strongly to Wayne Barnes that it should have been a Leinster penalty. It shouldn't have been, but he could argue that the Falmina tackling Henshaw without the ball meant Henshaw wasn't able to regather it. It would have. Now that's not the situation. But it would have put enough doubt into Wayne Barnes' mind about the probability of a try being scored.
I haven't seen this back, but I think the move that it all came from was when Toner was a knock on in our 22.
Yeah.
And looking at it on the replay on the big screen in the ground, it didn't look like a knock on. It looked like it went backwards. I know straight down is a knock on, but it looked to me like it actually went backwards. So. We wouldn't have been in that position if that hadn't been given as a scrum against us.
Oh yeah, but I mean, it was a yellow card. Balanced probabilities, not a penalty try.
It could have been given as a
penalty try. It could have been given as a penalty try, but I think Barnes
and a different referee could have just said scrum.
Yeah, I think Barnes was cognizant. Yeah, because he was trying to get it. The hand went up, and you blocked him from regaining. Blah blah blah. So I felt sorry for Uge. Went to the offload, it went straight back up. It came down, and he caught it. Penalty.
Yeah. He couldn't resist it. No, he's lying on the ground.
You can't. Like, what are you going to do? Let it hit you in the mush?
Yeah.
Well, do you want to have a quick gander at the tries, Dave?
I would love to do so,
Excellent stuff.
Throwing it in there, lads.
This is from the kick-off that went dead.
Yeah.
And it's just, everything is in constant motion. It's really, really good stuff.
Yeah, they seem to regroup. I'm looking at a little triangle out there with O'Brien in the front of it, confusing everybody, and Sean Cronin. The two Seans.
Their forwards are already knackered at that stage,
Yeah.
chasing this back.
And the tireless James Ryan, who we haven't mentioned yet. He's got some
It gets hard mentioning him because he does so
some
much
stamina.
stuff. Yeah.
He just seems to get up and go.
So look who's here
There's
in on the
some
clear
meters in contact for.
out. James Lowe in on the clear out.
Yeah. And that was Ringrose.
And you see now he starts buzzing
This is
around behind
beautiful.
the line to try and see what he
Look
can
at that
get.
for a loose head prop. Boom!
Yeah.
And then you have the well-known centre, Sean Cronin.
Look at the speed of the rucks. So
Yeah.
quick.
You can't live with that when you're 6'8" and 20 stone.
The finishing was just superb though.
I watched the rematch of the match on Sunday, and I saw BT Sports said that he was tackled 9 meters out from the line
And still
and
scored.
still scored. Beat two tacklers and still managed to stretch for the try.
Six European try and 8 appearances, as it says there.
Over his head. Yeah, he's something like 20 tries out of 27 appearances or something like that. Yeah, you can.
But it's just so many moving parts. It goes from side to side. It's constantly moving. Their pack is just...
There was a big hole there in front of Sexton if he'd have gone into it as well. You know?
Glad he didn't.
Yeah, worked out well.
Humongous clear out there from Tyg Byrne.
It'd be pretty good that Tyg Byrne could clear out as soon as he was playing Saracens
Oh,
today.
Tyg Furlong, sorry. Yeah.
But yeah, look at this from Lowe. Smashes one tackle, the other, a third guy on him, and he rolls over on his back and scores over his head. That's taking a piss, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Will he continue to take the piss?
You know,
as far as I'm concerned?
we mentioned when he played in the Pro 14 a couple of weeks ago, his box office, he's absolutely
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
sensational, you know.
And the
but-
great thing is, there's 2, possibly 3 games now that he left where he'll have the 2 into 3 conundrum.
Unless we sign another one.
No, we won't. We won't sign somebody who's going to put us in that position
No, I don't
again.
think so.
No, the only reason Lowe, in fact, was signed was because he was in under the 3-year
Yeah,
rule
and too good an opportunity to
and
miss.
too good an opportunity to pass up. So it's not going to happen again. They've learned their lesson. It's like Issa Nasewa in South Africa with his passport.
I don't even
It's
think...
a lesson they
I don't
learned
even
once.
think it was a matter of a lesson. I think it was... They went consciously into it, knowing that they would have this problem, but also knowing that
He'd be
we
worth
have
it.
this guy in 3 years' time. I mean, and that's... We'll take the hit now for the long-term benefits. I think they were totally cognizant of what they were doing, but just decided to do it anyway.
Yeah. So Mr. Gibson Park will be Irish qualified from the end of this season.
Yeah.
So we should see more of Mr. Lowe, I would imagine. I mean, all that's going to limit him next year is normal rotation, and also we'll have him during the World Cup, guaranteed. Well, obviously barring injury. So that's all good news.
Unfortunately, the news that Noel Reid is going to leave the club
Yeah.
was confirmed. And
Yeah.
that's, I really don't like to see anyone leaving the club. I can understand why he wants to leave. I can 100%. He's been, I think he's just, this season particularly, he's really flourished.
He's had his best season. yeah.
And but you mentioned like just having Lowe during the World Cup. It'd be great to have someone of the
Calibre
calibre
and all, really.
of Noel Reid with, I don't know what he has, maybe 120 Leinster caps or a lot of experience anyway. I think he got a couple of caps for Ireland as well. But just in the kind of when
Mix.
you're going to have a lot of younger fellas in those first few weeks of the season next year, he would have been an ideal lad to have in there.
I was
But
going to say
anyway,
we'd be guaranteed to get Leicester in the Champions Cup,
Oh,
but they're not going to be in it.
but we obviously wish him the very best.
Oh,
Absolutely,
Yeah,
yeah.
Been a great servant to Leinster. His last 18 months, I mean, the one criticism everybody had of Noel Reid, lovely footballer, but he can't tackle. In the last 18 months, he really put the work in.
Yeah.
And became, if not the world's most destructive tackler, functional.
Yeah.
And that's all you really want. Because when you add all the other stuff that he has, his playmaking ability, his skills,
It's passing.
yeah, his passing, he's a
amazing.
wonderful passer of the ball. Yeah, he's going to be a loss to Leinster. So he certainly is, but you wish him all the best because he's done his time here and he never shirked it.
That's true.
Yeah, fair play. One other bit of news about Leinster was Robin McBride's rumours. It hasn't been confirmed yet, but like it
Replacing
it
Fogarty.
kind of goes to show the calibre of coach that the club can now attract. A couple of seasons ago, maybe 4 seasons, when O'Connor left, and we were, we kind of all thought, well, this is like the branch have a master plan in place, that there's somebody lurking in the background who's going to come through. And when we were quite surprised that they kind of had to recruit a very callow Leo Cullen to come in and take over the reins. And then obviously, he kind of struggled because it's such a big job for him to do. And they got, a very high profile coach in Lancaster.
Who was at the time damaged goods.
Absolutely was. But he
coach.
had 4 bad games for England out of probably 50 as coach.
Yeah.
Where, they continually won 4 out of 5 games during the Six Nations. Like they beat Ireland 3 times, I think.
Joe Schmidt never beat him.
Yeah. So like they beat the All Blacks. He just because he had a few bad matches in the World Cup, that he can't really control whether his captain decides to take a line out or 3 points.
Yeah.
Well, the word on Mr. McBride from anyone I talked to in Wales is that the scrum is his big party piece. That maybe he
that's handy for us.
And that's where we're hiring him for. We're not hiring him as main forwards coach, although he probably will take a lot of that responsibility. But he's replacing Fogarty, who is the scrum coach. So that's
but like it goes
that's all
to the
good.
caliber that you've got somebody who's been involved with Gatland for the last
10 years.
10 years.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much, 3-4 Grand Slams, is it, that Gatland?
We never took him on the lines though, crucially.
But you can't take everyone. That's
you
Welsh.
have to. You do have to.
You have to spread it around.
Exactly. Yeah. People say that he never took him on the lines. I don't know what that actually means, because you can't. The coach, the backroom team is always made up of a mix of nationalities.
Like that's what the lines is about. It's not Wales on tour, So, although sometimes you're.
Gatland did like to pick the brains of other coaches as well on these things, So he got Fedler in the last time. To pick his brains.
Yeah. Do you have a couple of questions there, Dave?
We do actually, yes. Let me see now. So first on Twitter. Well, we've got one that Brian Hughes asked a question. We'll come to it later because it's about Munster. So we'll talk about it when we're talking about that much game. So we actually have 2, one from Ricardo Tiernig and one from Brian Hughes. Brian asks, how much cotton wool should I order to cover Shawnee and Luke in, so we have A, a quality 7, and B, so we can play Fardy and Low. I presume he means in the final. And Ricardo Tiernig asks, assuming Jamison Gibson Park may not be fit to play Newcastle, is it worthwhile starting Hugh O'Sullivan in Ravers to get him some game time and thereby run the risk that he could get crocked?
Ooh, these are the things. What do you do? Do you wrap players in cotton wool and therefore they'll never get injured?
Yeah, they could drop a bottle of tomato ketchup on their foot, and that's that.
Most of them get injured in training.
Yeah.
Or do you play them and risk them getting injured, but then they'll be, what's the word? They'll be informed. They'll have a bit of match fitness.
Well, I think you have to look at.
There's a blend.
I think you have to be holistic about it, and you say,
of course,
nice word.
Do you take Sexton and go, okay, well, he's so important to the team.
Oh well, he's not going to Ulster, that's for sure.
Agreed. But like you take Sean O'Brien, he's coming into form now. I'd say play him, because the more games he plays, the better he becomes.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what they do. We'll be talking about it later. It's a game when nobody has any skin in whatsoever. So, I mean, they could play the Carrick Cup sides.
They could.
And so could Ulster. So.
Yeah, well, Ulster have a game against Connacht the following week. They need to rest people for a week off, which is nice. But they'll have a week off. We're in the Heineken Cup final. Every other team in Europe, bar Leinster and Saracens, will have a week off the following week.
And La Rochelle, Claremont.
Excuse me. How could I forget? But yeah, I would. It's 50-50 with Sean O'Brien. Yeah, I see your point. So maybe start him and get him off early if he's all right. But you are risking a fairly injury-prone player.
Yeah, see, I think on a kind of an actuarial basis, if you look at how injury-prone he's been over the last year to 18 months,
it's
it's
not one I'd risk myself.
Or especially when you consider the injury profile in the squad for sevens.
Yeah, definitely.
Because he's the last man standing.
That was my next point. Yeah, he's
So
the man.
I wouldn't risk it with Sean. Might risk it with Huey. I'd send up both him and Pat Patterson and give them both a run.
Well, Patterson is in the European squad, which Nick McCarthy isn't.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so I'd send them both up and give them both a run. You never know.
And like, if Hugh O'Sullivan or Patterson does get injured, you've always got Gibson Park in there. You know.
Yeah.
Like you want to keep McGrath. McGrath hasn't played a whole lot of rugby, but you don't want to risk him getting injured either.
Apart from one or two slightly shonky box kicks, he looked really good on Saturday. I really think. I mean, he took his try very well.
They were a bit short.
We take a look at his try now. He took it really, really well.
I think his namesake Jack McGrath might get a visit to his new ground.
Yeah, he might get an early tour of facilities.
He's looking for houses up there now.
Yeah.
He isn't it one of his great strengths though, Luke McGrath, the way he drives his forwards around the
Yeah,
place.
he manages them very well.
Always has been, even since he was an under 20.
We mentioned a while ago, like he's a fairly young fella, and he's been captain of Leinster quite a few times.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know, like
Again,
he's obviously-
captain in his under 20 days
yeah,
as well.
like he's obviously a very respected player that they've given him the captaincy.
Yeah, he's
You know,
obviously
respected
regarded
by his peers.
yeah as a member of the leadership group,
And
as
he's
they say.
tough as for a small fella. He's tough, isn't he?
Yeah.
No, he is,
Seen him go
he's
up
hard
against-
as nails, like.
Oh,
Seen him
he's
go
some
up against
tackler.
huge lads
Oh, he's
in the
fantastic
tackle.
tackler.
Yeah. No, he managed that game very well.
I thought now a couple of his box kicks were.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. He had two bad ones.
They were-
He'd one that went virtually straight up and
They
straight
went
down,
straight up and down. Yeah.
and he had another one that kind of he scarfed off the side of his boot and it went sideways, and it went into touch straight away.
But he
But
made
apart
up
from
for
that-
that by scoring that try.
Yeah, but apart from that, I mean,
And Tyke Furlong
He did a lot of work
lamping your man end of it as well.
see, I don't know if Toulouse had that anger that like the likes of Tyke Furlong had.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I actually was very disappointed with Toulouse. I thought they were quite poor. I thought I mentioned it earlier. Their selection, didn't show much ambition. If you don't play your best player or one of your best players for 60 minutes,
Now he was carrying a
okay.
A-
But
a tie, it
but you
must be
just
remembered.
wonder if they're kind of saying, we don't really have much chance of winning this game. I just matter that
it's a fair point.
like
Yeah.
they even their tactics, what they did, they threw the ball to two in the line out all the time. You won't win any attacking ball at two in the line out.
Yeah, no, that was lazy play. I thought they weren't taking any risks whatsoever. I mean, we
Like you guaranteed to win your own ball for
yeah,
sure.
but you're not. It's risk free.
And like they've got a guy who's 6'10" and in a Scottish international.
Yeah. I've never drank, the Richie Gray Kool-Aid.
No, never been impressed with him. His
No.
little brother's a better player.
His little brother's a better player. You could sit me down, put me in a chair, explain it to me for like a year, and I'd be like, no, still don't get it. I just never have understood the Richie. I mean, he's an impressive physical specimen. He seems to have all the skills, but he never uses his physical presence in a match. I mean, he was blown out of it there by Devin Toner and James Ryan. I mean, absolutely blown out
That's
of it.
not exactly being
I
shamed.
know, but he wasn't even
Most people are blown out
a
of it
factor
by-
in the match. So he wasn't. The only time, I mean, did you even notice he came back on after because he did nothing before and he did nothing after it.
I think one thing is that Toner makes an enormous difference to the team, to
Yeah.
any team.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like we saw that he was missing for crucial matches for Ireland, and we didn't really function. We saw in the autumn internationals when he went off when he was injured.
Yeah.
And likewise, when he comes back into the Leinster team, they're a different animal.
Back in the days before he was appreciated, especially by Ireland fans, but even by a lot of Leinster fans who thought he was,
I think he's matured. Like he's a
of course he's got a
30-year-old
lot
man
better.
now, and
Of course he's got a lot better. But like he's got so many attributes, and he's talk about guys getting up off the ground and going again. He's got great engine on him.
Yeah.
He can go 80 minutes every game. Not a bother. He actually has had one of the highest minutes, I think, before he got injured, in both Ireland and Leinster. And he's what they used to say about him as well. He's really awkward to play against because he's all elbows and knees and
ironically,
limbs.
After we're talking about this after a game in which
And
he
his
made probably
hands.
his only 2 mistakes and handling mistakes of the season, he has brilliant
His hands are just unbelievable.
I always
for
think back to the
such a
Bath
big
game
guy.
in the Aviva.
That's right.
His
yeah.
handling that day, like he put a pass through that put Luke through a gap that was just sublime. Like any out half in the world would have been delighted with it. So
Yeah.
no,
And he goes in at scrum half at times as well.
Yeah,
Goes
he's,
in and-
he's a lovely
like-
footballer. People look at him and they think, "Oh, long, gangly guy," or
That's
whatever.
it.
Or they certainly used to. I always remember, like, even when he was in his early 20s, people were saying, "Oh, he needs to put more weight on," and he was already the heaviest lock in Ireland.
But I think he's grown into his body.
He's grown
Yeah.
into his body. Yeah, sometimes that's what happens, and I think he's.
I think if he was too much heavier, he wouldn't be able to get around the pitch the way
Yeah, he
does,
wouldn't,
you
and
know.
you wouldn't be able to lift him, for God's sake.
And
I mean,
that's
the
true
man
as
is,
well, yeah.
he's a big man. I can tell when I met him in the line out that time, he's huge. You don't realise how big he actually is.
Yeah.
Well, our guy you know as well, Carl, who's about 6'7", and I'm used to him being so much taller than me. But the two of us met Devin Toner one time, and it's like I'm 6'1", he's 6'7", and Toner's 6'11". It's Toner's almost as much bigger than him than he is
So
than
it's
me.
like,
It's
it's like
just
that old that sketch with the two Ronnies and John
exactly,
Cleese.
yeah. I'm not
Did you
used.
know your place?
I'm not used to people being taller than him, and I don't think he is either. So
Yeah.
he loved it when he was.
He's a massive man and
Good
a fabulous foot. And like you say, I mean, he's a guy, and everyone around him plays better when he plays. He's almost like kind of a catalyst. That he comes in and he plays well. Yeah, that's fine. But everyone else around him plays better when he's there.
Yeah, cracker player.
Well, turning our attention to.
No, we won't, because we've
Oh,
still
sorry.
got one more try to
Oh,
watch.
sorry, Dave.
Oh,
apologise.
And this actually leads us into another question, because this try was scored obviously by Scott Fardy and Mick Thompson, who's supposed to be doing some house painting apparently. I don't know. Said this question, and it's let's just all agree that Isa was Leinster's best ever foreign export. I think we can agree, or import.
Yeah.
I think we can agree on that. However, taking the likes of Hines, Thorne, Rocky, etc., is it safe to say that Fardy has been better than them since he arrived? Now that's controversial.
Well, Rocky is never going to be beaten for a one-season wonder. There's very rarely going to be a guy who's going to do that, what he did in one season.
Hines was a one-semester wonder.
Or
Or not Hines, Thorne.
Thorne was up there for a one semester. Nobody's going to have that in a
Hines
3 month
was brilliant
period.
for his 2
Hines-
years.
Hines was absolutely phenomenal. He's a great player.
Came in and added, and very much like Fardy. That's what the thing about Fardy.
Has Fardy-
Fardy isn't like a replacement for Hines or Elsom, for Thorne or Elsom. He's the reincarnation of Nathan Hines.
Well, they're both Aussies.
They're both Aussies. They both play in second row and the back row. They're both fantastic footballers, great forwards. Both get away with murder.
That's the big thing that
And
Hines had.
both have had a huge effect on the players. Again, another big effect on the players around them. Hines came in and he was so popular with the players, but such a good player for us as well on very unglamorous occasions. And it's the same with Fardy. I would have them both on a par in terms of achievement, what they've done for the rest of the team, what they've done for the younger players. I mean, we've had this succession of really good locks coming at the club since, we'd say, 2009. And I don't think it's any coincidence that since they've been there, you see guys like James Ryan, Ryan Baird, Jack Dunn, and all those guys start to come through. Ross Maloney. Because
Even Toner, we spoke.
even Toner, you see great, and Leo, you see great, if young players see great examples, then they learn from them, and all those guys, the younger players are learning from all the time.
Big Mo. Let's
Big
not
Mo,
forget
yeah.
Big Mo. That's a good question, Mick. I can't decide.
No,
Can't
neither
decide.
could I. Wouldn't call
Well,
it.
I suppose, elaborating on that, it's interesting that the IRFU wouldn't let us re-sign Nathan Hines
Mm-hmm.
after his 2-year deal was up. Was it in end of 2011 season?
Uh-huh.
And they have allowed Fardy re-sign
but-
for that extra year.
But the whole thing, like, if you look
So they would have allowed Hines resign
for a year.
for a year.
Oh,
He
was that
wanted
right?
2 years.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
He got 3, I think, in Perpignan.
He did. He got in Claremont.
Was it Claremont?
Claremont.
Okay.
He came from.
You're
You're
Perpignan.
right, you're right.
We
you're
played
right,
them
you're
in the
right.
semi-final. Remember, I
Yeah.
played against them in
Yeah.
the following season.
Yeah. Hines, if you remember at the time, we hadn't developed our second rows in the same way that Pienaar nobody developed any scrum halves in Ulster behind Pienaar for, I don't know, he was there 7 years. So the IRFU eventually got pissed off and said, look, you're going to have to take somebody else. Similarly, okay, you made the point that maybe if he'd have taken a 1 year deal, he would have got he would have been the same as Fardy, signing an extra year at 30. However, now we've got the Irish second row pairing along with him. We've got at least 3.
The under 20 pairing.
Exactly. We've got at least 3 behind that who are looking like they're going to be serious contenders. And James Ryan's only about 7 anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you think the guy's been there for 3 years at the highest level, and you think he's still only 23.
He missed 1 year though. He missed his first season, didn't he?
Yeah.
He did. He was injured.
I
We had to send him down to Munster to.
the highest praise you can give Nathan Hines is, in order to replace him, we had to sign one of the greatest players ever in the history of the game.
Uh-huh.
That's what it took to replace Nathan Hines.
Yeah.
I put Fardy on the same level as Hines in terms of what he's given to Leinster, what he's done, and how he plays and everything. I think he's been just superb. And
he's not as crucial to our game as
again,
Hines was.
The reason why that is because
we've got so many.
Because potentially the greatest Irish second row is coming through, or certainly with the potential in James Ryan. That's what it takes to displace Fardy.
Yeah.
That's the level these guys are operating at. And Fardy's signing was regarded as a bit, it was regarded as a bit Magnolia when he was signed. Was he a 5? Was he a 6? Yes, he's a very good footballer, but is he really? Blah blah blah. And I think now he's become almost essential, or regarded as such. And in as much as terrible and all as it is, a lot of people weren't actually entirely displeased when Rhys Ruddock had to cry off because we had got Fardy.
Yeah, but what people missed there was you've replaced Rhys Ruddock with Caelan Doris. Like Fardy was going to be there anyway.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I know. I know.
If you've got Fardy on the bench ready to come on, and Ruddock starting, that's potentially better than having Fardy starting and Caelan Doris, good and all as he is,
when he came on,
great player that he is. Okay, you're not losing massively, but you still would prefer whether you'd swap them around and have Ruddock on the bench and Fardy starting at 6, or whichever way you do it.
Sorry,
you'd have to.
Shocking breaking news just in. According to Mick Thompson, Devin Toner stole a kebab meal off him at Christmas in Zaytoons, and he only ordered the kebab. I'm telling you, I take back everything we said about Devin Toner.
Yeah, well.
Any man who robs another man's chips.
Typical Mead man there, is he?
Yeah, that's it, yeah.
Maybe Mick was just so locked he thought it was Devin Toner.
Maybe
You don't go.
It was actually Peter Stringer.
It was Carl.
No, it was actually Peter Stringer, but he was so locked he thought it was Devin Toner.
So we have another try to show.
Yes, we do, yes. And it's the aforementioned James Fardy's try, which again is good play.
Good old James Fardy, Scott's twin brother.
Oh, sorry. What did I say? James Fardy. I've just created the ideal lock.
Speaking of twin brothers, Richie Arnold, the two Richies, they're going to have the two Arnolds next year.
That's right, yeah.
Rory Arnold is going to be in there with them. That's going to be an interesting twin brothers in the second row. Or are they twins? I think they are.
I think they are twins, yeah.
They're definitely brothers anyway. Whoa, what a pass.
Great step there.
Armour did very well here.
Yeah, he did really, really well.
It was a bit of a hospital pass now, in fairness.
Nice clean out there from Rob as well.
And I'm not going to wait
and
for
then Larmour gets up and goes again.
I'm not going to wait for the penalty. I'm just going to go in and steal the ball. He did catch everybody cold doing that as well.
And their forwards are only wandering across. I mean, where's all their pack gone?
Well, one of them just
missed.
went from leaning on the ruck to completely missing the player. But yeah, good old Scott.
Actually, just looking at Larmour there, we forgot to mention his brilliant defensive read.
Yes, saved the try.
Yeah, absolutely superb.
Is that where he did the intercept on the line? Yeah, that was beautiful.
I mean, there were so many cameos like that in the game.
When I was writing the notes for this, I was going, such and such had a great game. Another one had a great. I could name the whole team here to write them down.
Yeah.
And the subs. The one concerning thing is a calf injury for Sean Cronin.
Sean Cronin, yeah.
It's better calf than a knee, but still.
He does it 3 weeks. Like, that's the only saving grace.
Great awareness of where he is, just to reach out and get the ball down.
Yeah.
But yeah, so to ultimately answer Mick, the kebab meal bereft Thompson, I wouldn't want to pick between them, to be honest with you.
No, different eras.
Yeah.
It's always hard to compare. Like, how do you compare Jonathan Sexton with Jackie Kyle? Okay, bit of a bigger gap, but
Yes,
Leinster-
a slightly bigger
Leinster
gap.
were in a very different place when Hines was playing for them than
Yeah.
they are now. So yeah, I can't decide. But he's got another year,
He has.
so maybe I can decide in a year's time and go, yeah, maybe Scott Fardy is the man.
So, looking back at Saturday's match, the Saracens against Munster, I was watching that match, and at halftime I was thinking, how is there only 3 points in this
Yeah.
game? And Munster just seemed to, again, almost like the Toulouse game, and Toulouse, they just didn't seem to have any self-belief in themselves. Like, they were giving away brain-dead penalties. Peter O'Mahony was just flopping onto rooks. There was one given when the ball should have been kicked off the side of the pitch at half-time, and they continued playing, and then they gave away a penalty. Madness.
Yeah, I think Saracens were just being very cagey and patient with them, and that's why they weren't.
Well, they turned on the taps in the first 15 minutes of the second half.
Well,
game.
exactly, they
Pick the
did.
moment.
They picked their moment, but that's the kind of game they play. They and they had a tactic of, which I saw Rob Kearney commenting on. They had a tactic of kicking the contestable and having the guy run up fast at it and just tap it back. So he's not going to catch it; he's just going to tap it. So it's very hard to defend against that. And Munster got caught a few times where the guy tapped back
Yeah.
the contestable kick to
They didn't
a
even try-
waiting
they didn't
player.
even
They should be
Try
trying
catch
to get a big guy up and do the same thing to them. For their
Yeah,
side.
but it's different when you're defending it. You're trying to catch it.
Yeah, 'cause
you don't want to knock it back towards your goals, because then you're just giving them something to run after. It's
Yeah,
a lot
they-
riskier to knock back a ball when you're in your 22 than
But it's
when
not
you're
rocket science. It's not a rocket science
They had
tactic.
in fairness, they
I'm
had.
not
they
saying
did
it's
a-
rocket science. I'm
No,
just
but
saying it's hard to
What
defend.
Saracens had is they had little bits and pieces that negated all the stuff that Munster were going to try and do.
And that's the way Saracens play the game.
Yeah.
They chip away at you, and
They're not afraid to take 3 points, 6 points.
No.
Oh,
9
absolutely
points.
not.
Whereas a lot, and even we've seen Leinster do it.
go for
and
the
Go
corner.
for the corner all the time.
Yeah.
And sometimes it works, but against Ulster, I think we went for it. And
Well, we went for it against Toulouse,
but
and
see, I
then
don't
they
think-
went for it.
But you see,
Yeah.
I don't think Toulouse. I don't think Leinster thought they were all that.
No, I don't think they did. I don't think they did.
I remember last week's
And a bag of
episode,
crisps.
I didn't think that they were all that either. Like, I just, because people were big up in them, I just didn't think that, from the evidence I'd seen of the matches that we played against in the 2 matches this season.
We did say that last week, all right, yeah, that people were a bit more worried about them because of what they'd done since we'd beaten them.
But I just.
But people forgot that was since we'd beaten them. But Saracens, I mean, I've sometimes used the analogy about cooking lobsters, and that's what Saracens do to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They slowly raise the temperature until you know it. You're cracked open on a plate covered in butter.
The other thing I'd say is Munster haven't a huge amount if you match them physically. They haven't a huge amount going on in the back line. They haven't got a lot of deception or
No.
And then you take out their best player or one of their best
yeah,
players.
well, like Carberry and Earls would have certainly made a difference. I don't know if they would have won the game for them.
No, maybe not, but
They certainly
They
would have
certainly
made it a
blunt
lot
their-
closer.
they blunt their time
So-
force.
So when you don't have those guys, like Chris Farrell is good, great player. He's got good hands. He's a big, strong lad. And Rory Scammell, maybe not. He's very, very good, but maybe not top level Heineken Cup kind of player. And I'd say the same perhaps about Sweetenham. Very, very good player, but perhaps not top notch
Chris
Heineken Cup.
Farrell's a big, strong lad. I mean, Saracens are big, strong lads coming out of their ears.
Yeah, but
You
it's
know,
coaching,
that's
I
the-
think, is the issue with their backline rather than. I don't know if it's the Van Gran South African mentality or what it is, but they just don't seem to have a cutting edge. So that means, like when Leinster are in a situation where what everybody said about the game on Sunday was that Leinster took their points when they got into the 22. They were fairly ruthless. Munster were never in that zone because they just didn't have the cutting edge to get across the line, even though they had the battle and the fight and everything to get up into the 22, but they just didn't look threatening enough.
Well,
And
you see,
until they have
that's
a
it. If you I mean, what Munster have that very few other sides in Europe have is this extraordinary self belief, and they're psychologically so strong. but so are Saracens.
That's it.
And then you take the physicality out of it, because Munster are physically, I mean, they're a physical team, but so are Saracens. So you strip that away and you're left with the difference between, you know, Saracens were, Sean Maitland had to drop out and they're able to bring in David Strettle. You know, that's a big.
He's knocking on now, but
he's knocking on, but he's still a class wing. They have Liam Williams, who's probably the form, maybe the form rugby player in Europe this year. They have obviously Owen Farrell, they have Brad Barrett, they have Lazowski, they had Alex Good. I said Alex Good, didn't I? They have all those guys, and they're all playing well, and they all have that mental strength that Munster have. And they're all as physically strong as the Munster players. And on top of that, they're better rugby players too. So,
yeah, well, I would have loved to see Munster get through it, but wasn't to be. And I just, you know, they're a fabulously good team up until you get to the last, and that's probably as evidenced by the fact that they've been in so many semi-finals of Europe. And we've said before that they probably got there ahead of their ability, if you like.
Yeah.
For a few years now, they're actually probably at the level where they deserve to be in a semi of Europe. But they just, when they get into that last four, they don't have that extra little bit to get over the
since
line.
Munster last lifted silverware, Leinster have won 2 European Cups, the Challenge Cup, and 3 Celtic Leagues.
Something like that. Well,
Connacht have won a Celtic League, and Ulster have been in a European final.
Well, if you look at it, they did a graphic actually during the game on Saturday where they showed the side-by-side record in both Europe and their respective leagues of Munster and Saracens. And Munster was all naughties, stop in 2011. And Saracens was, their first championship was 2011, and then win. So, you know, it just shows where the cutover was, where Munster just plateaued and Saracens took off.
And I thought just even Sweetenham's try with 20 minutes to go gave them a false glimmer of hope. But
yeah, because it really should have been a penalty to Saracens.
You know, it was too little too late at that stage. But like you could see, I thought that Blendell was injured. He was playing injured. They took him off early in the game, and you know they just don't have the strength and depth. Like we were able to.
We have 5 out halves.
Well, it doesn't matter how many you have. You've got to have. They've got to be good.
Yeah, well, that's it. Yeah.
But you just look at say our team, and we had Jemison Gibson Park couldn't play, so we were able to we subbed up a young scrum half, but it meant that someone like James Lowe gets into the team. Rhys Ruddock, captain Ireland, cries off on the 11th hour, and then bring in Scott Fardy who played in the World Cup final. You know, like they're bringing in, you know, I wouldn't say substandard players, but certainly not with the same quality as the 2 lads I've just mentioned there that can kind of step into Leinster's squad. Now, obviously, we've had a few injuries, and we've lost a few players for various different reasons. But those lads, you know, if you look at last year's team, it was so stacked with strength and depth. Now we've obviously lost between retirements, fellas leaving, and you know, guys getting seriously injured this year. We're not quite as strong in the depth charge.
The risks we took on certain players, I mean, ironically enough, at number 7, it's kind of gone the other way. It's the other way. Whereas the young guys that we took risks on that had kind of won their place in the team have been injured, so the older guys come back in. But at the same time, it's the risks we took with players over the last 2 years that kind of Munster didn't.
Yeah. But you see, their coaches have been under pressure to win matches.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You know, and they kind of have to play. They've got to buy in foreigners or get other fellas from different provinces because they need the quick fix. They're not prepared, or for whatever reason, to go through to start basically to dismantle transition and rebuild it all again.
Yeah.
Well, we see now because Van Graan now. I mean, he's only been he's been in the job 18 months, isn't it? So I mean, this is
really his first full season. So.
Yeah, and I think he came in last year. He took a look at what had been signed for this year, and decided what he liked and what he didn't like, and kind of. I mean, because like James Hart has hardly played any rugby, and he was a player that was talked about a lot when he was younger, but he's barely played any rugby. They've gone with what's his face instead, with Albie Matheson, and they even signed up Niall Cronin from the AIL rather than.
And they have Nick McCarthy coming up next.
And they have Nick
season.
McCarthy, so he's obviously shaping the squad the way he wants it. I mean, there's going to be changes in his back room as well. We know that. So he's going to get all his ducks in a row. Maybe it is a bit too early to judge him, but it's just hard to know where the players are coming from. Now they had 6 guys in the under-20s.
Yeah.
But
they have to.
That's a
they
light,
have to
a
play
shining
them.
light.
Yeah,
Don't they?
they have
Yeah,
to.
well, that'll be the acid test.
One or two of them have already made a couple of Celtic League appearances, but that will be the acid test. Yeah, it's how those guys come on from that position.
Can they take 6 guys or whatever it was in the under-20s team, all of whom looked good? Can they 3 years from now have some of those guys starting in Europe?
Yeah.
And see, that's that. I mean, I was saying earlier, Brian Hughes had the second question, and the question is, this is what we're talking about. He says, what hard squad questions do Munster need to front up to so they can move to the next level? And that's it. They have to start.
Yeah, but like they have
to
get rid of signing. Like if you look at who we've signed James Lowe, who was he might have been down the depth chart in New Zealand as regards their international standard wingers, right?
They're all brilliant.
They're all brilliant. So we've ended up getting a guy who was really, really high class Super Rugby player. We got him relatively young, and he's going to qualify for Ireland, and you can see what he's done in the 25 or 26 games he's played for Leinster. You get a World Cup winner playing on the flank or in the second
World
row.
Cup finalist.
Sorry, World Cup finalist. And you get a young guy coming up through the ranks in New Zealand rugby, Gibson Park, because they're your foreigners. Whereas
Blindall would have been.
Hold on, Munster.
He's been very unlucky with injury.
Sure, but they bring these guys, these South African fellas over that have got like 2 Springbok caps that practically, unless you're a complete rugby nerd, you've never heard of before, and they just prop up the team and they block the opportunity for fellas
That's true.
to come through because they're seen as, well, he's not going to do a bad job. I mean, he's a good, solid individual who's going to do a job for us, but you want to try and build your team. You're not going to build your team around a 2-capper
Whatever
South
happened
African
to
centre or South African second row.
Whatever happened to Conor Oliver? There was a guy who looked like he had a bit
that's
of potential.
Yeah.
I think he was injured is the answer to that, but for how long and how badly, I don't know. Jack O'Donoghue was also injured for a long time. There's a guy who's kicking around the squad for a long time.
But I mean, I was saying about the Munster's 5 out halves, but 2 of them were the next big thing. I mean, we're talking about bringing through the 620s, right? 2 years ago or 3 years ago, Bill Johnson was that guy. He's had a few injuries, but he still has. There's still 4 out halves in front of him.
Well, there isn't because Keithley's in
no,
London
Keithley's
Irish.
gone now, but you know what I mean. And then 5-6 years ago, JJ Hanrahan was that guy, and he never pushed on really. So
they ruined him. They ruined him 6 years ago. They ruined him.
They possibly did.
No, they did, and then they destroyed his confidence. Foley destroyed his confidence, and he ended up leaving, and went off to pretty average. We saw when we went over to play the Saints at that time. They were a rubbish team, and he was playing in a rubbish standard.
Behind Stephen Myler anyway.
Exactly, yeah. But I mean, he played that day that we were in Franklin's Gardens. But he was playing in a crap team. I think we put 40 points on them that day, and we put 40 points on them in Dublin as well.
Yeah, it's it's hard to know what Munster will do. They have to start with those young guys though. They really do.
I think we've got to go back to the drum.
One last point I'll say on Munster, right? Rob Penny came in, and he was probably a little bit too way out there for them, but none of them bought into this putting fellas out in the wing. Season or 2 later, Pat Lam came into Connacht and had all of the Connacht players singing and dancing on a similar type of rugby, with a similar shape of what Rob Penny was doing. But because the guys in Munster had a dogmatic idea of what they wanted to do, and probably because Anthony Foley was in the wings as well.
I think there was more to that there was Keith Wood was singing the praises of Anthony Foley.
Yeah, there was a lot of politics going on in the background.
Consistently slagging off Penny from every vantage point to get his old mucker.
I think that's a bit of a simplistic view. It's probably an element of that.
There was a lot of politics going on in Munster rugby at the time.
But Munster do need to change their game
around Rob Penny, because he realised that Munster rugby was never going to win anything again. Sorry, the way Munster played, the traditional Munster game, was never going to win anything again.
Well, do you know who had them playing?
And he had to.
Who nearly got them as well was McGahan.
Yeah,
He had a kind of an all-court. Remember when before they came up against us in Croker? Now I know he wasn't the
head coach.
He was the head coach
No,
actually, wasn't he?
No,
No, you're talking about in 08 or 09.
In 09.
Yeah, in
He
08.
was Irish coach. He won the Grand Slam.
Yeah, in 08.
Yeah, so
In
McGahan
08.
was the.
Yeah, in 08, McGann was the assistant coach. In
In
09, he was the head coach,
Yeah,
and they lost.
Yeah, but they won the bloody league. They ran away with the league, and
If
they
you remember,
demolished
they murdered Ospreys.
Ospreys.
Yeah.
They scored 6 tries against Ospreys in the quarter final, and they just blew them away. And that was Ospreys when they were good as well.
Yeah.
They came back and beat us in the next year in the final. But when I saw that game, I went, "Oh my God, Munster! They've always had that toughness, and they still had the same pack that had just won the Heineken Cup. But now they've got this extra dimension to them, which is what they still need. Is that extra dimension of back play where they can piss tries in as well. Now, unfortunately, they came up against us on the wrong day. Maybe that had a detrimental effect to their psyche or something, and they went. They didn't develop their game on.
That they went back into their shell after that.
That's
that
what
they
I mean,
decided
yeah.
that this newfangled stuff isn't for us. They went back into the shell, and the next year we gave them a couple of wallopings as well. One in particular in the RDS.
Didn't they won the Pro 14 that season, didn't they?
In 2000.
In
09, yeah, they ran
they
away
won the
with the
Celtic
league.
League, yeah.
They ran away with it. It was the last year it was a league.
Yeah.
The following year it became a.
But that was, I mean, that was it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Munster don't judge themselves by the Pro 14, John.
Sure.
That's
As far as the true blue Munster thing is, they haven't won a trophy since 2008.
Yeah. Well, like, don't forget that they had a team that was together for 10 years and they didn't start replacing it. They just stuck with the same lads who all got old together.
I thought it was very similar, actually. Funny enough, I thought there was a great analogy between that team and the Kerry team. The Kerry football team in the 70s and 80s. That was in every All-Ireland final for 10 years nearly.
Yeah.
And then it went 10 years without being in an All-Ireland final because the team just got old together.
Yeah.
And that Munster team had the same issue.
And if you look at Leinster's team and you go back and you look at the progression, like it's 10 years since our first Heineken final to this one, and you look, okay, there's a couple of lads that are still, O'Brien I think was subbed that day, Rob Carney.
Yeah,
There's
the
not
younger
many-
guys are still there.
There's not many
The ones
others.
who were younger guys.
Yeah, but there's just, Sexton, okay, but like there's not many others. Do you know what I mean? Like there's a squad of 40 fellas, like, so there's not many that. But then there's just been this progression, and some fellas were coming to the end of their cycle. It took us a little bit to go at the bottom of the trough, and then we went back up again. And it's all about replacing just before it's too late.
Yeah.
And like that's why we need to have, whether it's Ross Byrne, whether it's
Harry Byrne.
but at some point Sexton's going to hit the end of his cycle and they're going to need somebody in there, otherwise it's going to be a big void. But lads, just before we kind of run out of time, I just want to talk about a few other things. The attendance at the Munster Sarries match wasn't it just shocking? 16,000 at it.
In a 40,000 stadium.
Like
or
ERC
32 or whatever.
have to answer some questions about that. I mean,
The problem is, Jay, that they don't have to answer any questions about it because nobody asks.
But I can't understand. Like there's 20 stakeholders in it, all the clubs.
Mm-hmm.
Like they get the money, the ERC get it, and then I presume redistribute some of that money from the attendance. Like 16,000.
I wonder, did they overprice it? Like ours was a little bit like ours could have sold out if they'd have knocked a tenner off all the tickets.
Possibly, yeah, I don't know.
And would that?
But like I went onto the Saracens web fans forum, and there's a thread there that asking about the attendance, and then a few people from Saracens, and there's all sorts of excuses were coming through saying it was too far. It's like an hour and a quarter, an hour and a half up the road. That there was no trains running. I can understand that, but still you could drive or get a bus. It was Easter Saturday. It was Easter Sunday in Dublin.
Mm-hmm.
One actually guy said it was Passover, so let's see. And then one lad actually had the temerity to say that he got a new puppy and he couldn't leave it.
That's a classic.
Oh, in fairness, it's the best excuse I've heard.
Yeah.
Although you would question the wisdom of taking a London team out of London. So that's kind of a bit of an odd thing for the EPRC.
Like I know they they do only have 3 weeks to sell it.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that, whereas say Leinster would have
But
had.
still, on this little island with not half as many people.
Yeah. But rugby.
Plus, most of
ahead
the people there
I
were
did-
Munster.
That's true. But look, I would say that there's far more people per head of population interested in rugby in Ireland than in Britain.
Probably currently, yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, it's hard to answer. I mean, and when the Saracens, for a variety of reasons that we just won't go into. I mean, they're really only in Allianz Park now a relatively short period of time. I mean,
And it's only a 10,000 seater stadium.
yeah.
so-
What I'm saying is, in terms of what they're doing in their community, and in terms of building up support and stuff like that, where they get to the point where they can get a big number of people to go to a match, there's still it's still very much green shoots. It's still very much in the beginning of that process.
But
true.
can you just say though, Dave, right? I appreciate that, and Saracens don't have a large fan base.
But Nigel Ray's been pumping money into them since '96, or since
But Coventry
rugby went professional.
is the heart of English rugby. There's there's some of the
Leicester,
Premiership
yeah,
clubs. There's
Wasps,
Wasps are based there. Northampton, Leicester. The Midlands is a huge hub of rugby, and for the ERC not to have been able to tap into that properly is shocking.
That's
Even
true.
as a novelty factor,
That's
to
true.
say come and bring your kids go free or whatever, because we're going to have a load of empty seats.
Yeah.
I blame Billy Vunipola.
Well, I was going to mention the fella running onto the pitch, but I think the shoes said it all. Anyway, look.
Must have been a Leinster fan.
It must have
the
been.
red
That's what
jersey.
O'Gara said. He
Yeah.
said it was a plan. Anyway, look, we just very quickly we'll move on and have a chat about the Pro 14 matches
That's
next
still on.
weekend. It's still on, believe it or not. We play Ulster next weekend.
Dead rubber.
Dead
No need
rubber.
to
Dead
discuss that.
Yeah.
So I suppose it just really comes down to who's going to be wrapped in cotton wool. We have mentioned that, so we'll move on from that. There's a couple
There's
of
just a note there from Mick Thompson again. He's obviously taking the world's longest break from his painting. Providing they play in the final, only 3 players have played in all 5 finals. Or Sexton, Healy and Toner.
Okay. There you
Carry
go.
on, Jay.
Okay, so there's basically of all the matches next weekend. I think there's 3 that are kind of gonna, have consequences for league positions. Obviously, Munster and Connacht, Munster can overtake Glasgow.
Mm.
If,
Be hard enough for them though. All Glasgow need really is a losing bonus point, I think.
But the thing is, they absolutely can't overtake them if they lose.
Well, of course.
Munster are 3 points behind Glasgow, so
But Connacht have nothing to play for though because they can't
exactly, yeah.
get
So
any higher than third.
correct. So and it's in Munster's ground. So Munster if Munster are 3 points behind Glasgow. So if Glasgow lose, Munster leave and Munster win, they leapfrog them.
Yeah.
So
Edinburgh have a lot to play for because they are a point ahead of Scarlets.
they are, but you see, Glasgow have a lot to play for as well.
Yeah.
So there's actually
That's the crucial game
yeah.
because Treviso, you'd fancy them to get the job done. They just need any poxy win, like 3-0 against Zebre. Now it's in Zebre, but even so,
They played them twice already and won both those games against
That's
Zebre
true.
this season.
that's true. But
Third time's a charm.
yeah, well, no, you got to fancy Treviso to get over the line.
I would, yeah.
So that means that Scarlets and Edinburgh are really playing for a playoff place. They're going to play the winner of the Ospreys Scarlets game. Sorry, Ospreys Cardiff game, which is also on the same day, Judgment Day. So you got to fancy the Scarlets to take 5 points off the Dragons because they just will. No matter even if they all slip in the shower. Cardiff and Ospreys is a very interesting game because there's a lot of there could be just one Welsh team in Europe next season,
One too many.
and one
There
of
could be none.
it's possible there could be none. It's very unlikely, but here's a little wrinkle actually that you may or may not know.
If Leinster win.
If Leinster win, yeah, you do know, Leinster could actually drag a Welsh team into the
They could.
cup.
Wales
But
could have,
it relies
could have
on-
2, 1 or none teams in Europe next year, depending
Yeah.
on how Leinster do in Europe.
One is the most likely.
Mm.
But if the Leinster route is open to be open, it means that all the semi-finalists of the Challenge Cup have to qualify under their own steam. That's the only way Leinster can drag a team in by winning the Champions Cup. So anyway, that's a sidebar. But yeah, Scarlets gonna win. Edinburgh, if they beat Glasgow, will stay ahead of Scarlets and end up in the playoff against either Ospreys or Cardiff. And the other interesting wrinkle in the Ospreys Cardiff one is that Gareth Anscombe is leaving Cardiff and going to the Ospreys. So imagine if he's got a penalty to put. I think we might have said
folks,
this
you're
last
not
week.
actually watching last week's episode today.
Okay, sorry, we said it last week. Excuse me.
Sorry, John.
Sorry, lads. As if the thing wasn't long enough, I go and repeat myself.
It can never be too long when you're discussing the glory of Leinster's victory over Toulouse.
That's true.
Let's just do it. James Lowe's try again. Just for, this, I mean, this was a semi. This try gives me a semi. It's just beautiful. Look at all that. Oh. Whoa.
Okay, I think we've run out of things to talk
Look
about
at
in that
those
case.
hands. You can never run out of things to talk about when you're looking at this.
That's true.
I mean, it is a wonderful try. This is the best try we've scored all season.
You'd have to say so.
How quick the ball is.
Yeah.
It's the recycling, the rucks. These lads don't know what to be doing with it.
No. They can't get set at all, like. Bang.
So yes, this is a good way to sign off. This dead air, ladies and gentlemen,
It's
is
not
because
dead air,
we're
it's-
looking at Leinster scoring
Yeah,
a fabulous try.
We can't sign off. I need both hands to turn off the computer. Look at that. Oh,
Was that a hint of a forward pass?
no, it wasn't.
From
Okay.
that angle, it kind of looked it, but I think from others it doesn't.
That was just pure filth, so it was.
Okay.
Well, anyway, boys, on that fantastic try, thanks very much for watching, and thanks very much, lads, for joining me tonight.